Hello, Jonathan Kemp here at the University of St Andrews and Kemp Strings. So today I'm going to show you how to use Reaper. I'll just open Reaper. I'm going to show you how to use Reaper to combine different video files to make a collaboration video. So what we're going to do is go to New Project and see what we've got in Reaper. So this is what Reaper looks like as default. Go into the Finder, find some files. Here are some video files. I'm going to drag these video files, the different musicians, into Reaper. And separate tracks is what I'll select next. And there we go, we've got a bunch of different video files available to us now. So there they are. Now, what we're going to do with them, we need to show the video, so we go to View and Video. Okay, so at the moment we can see one video file. If we were to swap the order of the tracks, the one that goes on top is going to be the one that we see first and only one we're going to see initially. You can, have different people showing in the video just by repositioning who's at the top. So that's not giving us much. What we want to do is to show a grid of them. So how do we do that? Let's go to Track, Insert New Track. That's creating a new track, and that new track, let's drag that new track to the very top. Here's our new track. It's now at the very top of the screen. It's not got anything in it. Let's go to FX and make a video processor in here. So we're going to click FX and all plugins, video processor, OK. So here's a video processor. We can do lots of different video effects. One that's available is combined 2x2 input matrix. If you click on that, you get this grid here of 4. We've got 6 videos that we really want to show, so we need to do more than this. So if you go to the link in the YouTube description, you'll find a link that takes you to here, and we can click and drag and select all this code, copy, which means Command C on Mac or Control C on PC. Go back to Reaper, select all this stuff, and then paste, Command V on PC, Control V on PC, and then we're going to go to Save after we've pasted it. So we go to Save, which is Command S or on Mac and Control S on PC, and when we click that, saved, code updated, there you go. We've got 6 videos now visible in the grid. You've got loads of controls here. We can resize this and see how many controls we've got. Y offset, we'll just bring that down a bit so it's a bit more central. So that's kind of fitting these 6 grids, or 6 videos into a grid. So it'll do this with any number of videos. And make a sensible choice as to how many columns and rows to have. Right, so what can we do with it to make it interesting? We might want to change the lead grid size. If we change that up to 2, we get this one twice as big as everything else, and lead grid size up to 3. This one's now 3 times the size in width and height of everything else, and so on. And yeah, sometimes that could produce a nice kind of look for what you want to do. If this is quite big compared to the others, sometimes it might be nice to expand the one that's big to fill the entire screen, so that you can do with expand lead track. If you just drag that up and make it equal to 1 for expand lead track here, it's now got one main track with lots of other people around the edge, yeah, you can choose whether that's on the front or on the back, this expanded track with lead to front. Switch that to 1, it's going to be on top and you won't see anything else. Bring it to the back and it's like this again. Okay, so different options, lots of things you can do. You can automate these controls so it does that expansion while the track's playing. Now, lead track number here, you can choose which track. At the moment, track number 2. Remember, the video processor is in track number 1. Track number 2, we can choose to go to call in on number 3 there. There we go. Or 4, or 5, or 6, or 7, and that's all the tracks there are. So if we go bigger than that, it's just going to show the same one. Okay, so there's the different videos and how you can flick between them to fit everyone onto a page. I quite like, for this video, having lead grid size down at 2 with this number of performers. It looks quite good like that. Okay, so yeah, once you've done that, you can obviously, you might need to synchronize the different performers. So yeah, I won't go into great detail on that at the moment, but I probably want to switch off snap enabled and then synchronize the different performers so they're all starting at the same time or whatever, which is going to be something a little bit like this, but not exactly like that necessarily. Something like that, I think. Okay, so this one doesn't have any audio in it. So yeah, the different videos are now combined. And you know, when you're doing this live, you want to synchronize the timings of these in detail by zooming in and lining them up perfectly. I'll not bother showing you that at the moment. Right, so what about audio? If people have provided audio as well as video, here are some audios. Let's drag in these audios as well. So we need to drag them into a space below everything else, for instance, and drag those files in, separate tracks. Okay, so these audio tracks as well, we'll need to synchronize them somewhere around there. Okay, and we can do that in more detail in due course. Right, so that's the idea with lining up these and getting them to play. So say we've got nice audio recorded on a sound card for the drummer, and the actual video, it's got audio as well, but the video audio is not so nice. If we solo it, you can hear that it's an acoustic noises from an electric drum kit. So we want to switch down the volume of that. So if you go to the top of this track and float over it just right, you get that double arrow thing. Click and drag down, and now the audio is silent for that video, which is what we want, because we really want to be hearing what the kit is really doing, which is somewhere down here. This is the drum kit audio itself. That's better, isn't it? Okay, so that's the sort of thing you might need to do with if people have been providing both video and audio separately, and you want to kill the camera audio and preserve the nice audio recorded in Reaper or whatever audio software through a nice sound card, that type of thing. Okay, so yeah, when you've combined everything, you can then export it. So I haven't lined everything up properly in detail, but I'll just show you the process of doing the export. So we get everything sorted out. We can then specify the length of the export by dragging in this top area here. So you can choose what's called the time selection. So in due course, we line that up perfectly. You can sort of find the double arrow thing and drag it so it's just in the right place, and find the end of the file as well and get that in just the right place. You'll see that sometimes things will disappear when you get to the end. If somebody's hit stop on their camera before somebody else, then you will see some of the things in the grid disappear. So if that does happen, you can always fill in the gap with a picture file. So I've got a picture file here. Just drag that in to there. And that's a new item. So now that's going to save that position in the grid that was occupied by one of the performers when you get to the end. Okay, so yeah, similar situation with John. We need to drag that so it's in the right position. We'll need to because this one's not got any audio from the actual camera, we would need to find exactly where he did his first note, which is somewhere around there, and just drag that in so it's in the right place to be playing at the same time as the track, and that might take a little while to line it all up properly. But now when we get to the end of the track, you can see that everyone's still there. If we go to just here, this performer has turned into the image. We've kept this place on the grid, which is better than it disappearing like that perhaps. Okay, so that's the idea with some of the things you can do with the video and audio. When you've got your specification of where to start and finish your track sorted with time selection, go to Render. So File, Menu, and then Render. So the default settings are usually entire project here and WAV down there. We're going to change the bounds to be time selection, because we have specified with the time selection where to start and end our export. And then we want to change from format WAV to format MPEG. So you've got video options down here, audio options up here. We're going to go for one of the video files for the export and make one video file that can be shared on your social media or whatever. So MPEG for MOV works for me. You might find one of the bottom options here otherwise works for you. Depends on your system. Okay, so yeah, there's the output format. That's 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels as standard sort of HD format, and render one file. So yeah, that's making a file called untitled.m4v. It's a bit loud. We need to mix the levels and such like. So I'll just hit cancel at the moment. Yeah, what we're going to do about those levels, we want to sort of, you've got the volume here, we can bring it down a bit and export again. In real life, when you're playing all this stuff, I've not synchronized things perfectly, but okay, so we can see the volume of the individual tracks and bring the volume down. You can pan things left and right and such like. Okay, so yeah, once you've got the level right, let's see what it's like now. File, render, and render. Okay, so that is a bit more sensible. It's rendering in real time and making a single file output from the whole thing. Right, so I won't let you watch the whole of that render thing, but that's got to go all the way through to the end of the song. Video is quite intensive for Reaper, so I'll just cancel that for the moment. Okay, so one of the things you might notice incidentally is that this video is not quite the right size. So if we were to bring him up, if we change the lead track number to that particular one, you'll see it even more clearly. There we go, so you can see that that's not the right size. Okay, so one of the things you can do is go to preserve aspect and go to 0, and then it's not going to preserve aspect. It's going to make the file stretch out, which is one option. You can do that with files which are almost right in terms of their sizes, but if it's a portrait mode, that's going to be pretty bad. So let's go to preserve aspect 1. I'll show you a more general, better way of doing it using zooming that doesn't cause any stretching sideways of the image. Right, so what we're doing, we go to File and Project Settings. So preferred video size 1920. We can actually manually enter the size of the video that we're wanting out of this, and always resize video sources to preferred video size. Always resize output to preferred video size. Okay, and now this video is filling in the full space of the grid with black lines at the edge. Now, how are we going to make this guy drag and fill? So this is the track in question here, and we're going to go to FX here, go to Video Processor, okay, and then go to Track Opacity Zoom Pan, the basic helper for that. Click on there, and then we can go to Zoom. and just drag that up, and you can see that now it's able to resize and zoom, and you can zoom lots if you want, but let's go to 0.5, which I have already determined to be pretty optimal. It's a bit fiddly. There we go. Okay, so 0.5 zoom is giving us this. You can do a little Y offset if you want to see a little bit more eyes or whatever. There we go. Okay, so that's how to resize. That process will work for portrait modes if somebody sends you a portrait and everyone else has done what they're told and provided landscape, for instance. So make sure everyone records in landscape or everyone records in portrait, but you can always do this trick of zooming in to cope with problems. So if we hadn't done that step incidentally of going to project settings and always resizing videos, then this might not have worked so well if we hadn't specified the sizes here. If we don't specify the size here, what happens with the zooming? Yeah, so the zooming now does not what you want. You can zoom, but it's not going to fill the space. It's just keeping the old sizing. Okay, so that's why we went to project settings and actually entered in 1920.1080, and then we went to here, and once you've done that, you can do that zoom. Here's the zoom. Okay, so that's the important thing, is just to specify the size of what's coming out of, or what the sizes should be for the videos. Sometimes you might find it's necessary to tick these, sometimes not. Okay, so that's all going fine. So you give us nice looking videos, and you can do automations on these. So if you want to say make this one expand to fill the whole thing, you know, expand lead track, that's currently behind, maybe we'll switch lead to front and then expand like that. That'd be a nice thing to do while the track is playing. How do we do that? Let's go to our top track, which is the track that's only got the video processor code in it. Go to trim and then select something like expand lead track. On the left hand side, we're going to tick this box. Oops, I missed. Tick this box, expand lead track, there we go. Okay, so now we've got this kind of graph of the expansion of that. I'll just use these zoom in, horizontally and vertically controls, or you could even make this bigger by floating and dragging if you get the double arrows to appear. Right, so what if we want to get the project to play back and expand while it's playing back? Let's go to Shift, hold down the Shift button and then click on the graph, and then hold down Shift again and click on the graph a little bit later, and then take one of these balls that's appeared and drag it up. Okay, so that is now going to give us a fade during playback. I'll just zoom in a little bit, see what happens when I hit play. So we're going to expand. Okay, so obviously the timings, the synchronization of the videos is awful at the moment, but you can see the process of adding these in. I will show you one which has been synchronized by manually dragging them in a minute. Okay, so yeah, that's the process, and all that's left to do is, you can add audio effects, you can do mixing, all sorts of things you can do with that. I'll show you one I made earlier. So if we go to this folder, burningset.rpp. So this is I did this already, so it's all got some automation of things like which is the lead track and which is the expanded track. I did some automations of some volumes as well on some of the instruments and their audio. I also did a text overlay. So in here, instead of it just being the video processor it's this very top track 1 is actually got some text overlay video processor preset things where you type in text up there. This one here is the version where we hit FX there, it's going to bring up this one. So this is the one which is my code, and that's generating this grid. So this one we've got the automations going. So there's the automation line there. So everything is now synchronized and producing nice audio. You can see how it was synchronized with some clicks, people clapping in time. So if you get people to clap in time, you can zoom in and realign these things nicely. Another feature that I added at the very end is just dragged in a video, an image, and put that in the very top track, and that just when we get to here, you can see how the thing is. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so the playback for this type of project is not necessarily 100% real time. If we were to do a render of that project, you can see when you've added these things, it's going 3 times real time or something, 2 times real time, slowing down a little bit as the computer does more chugging when it gets to having multiple screens showing at once and such like. So just a little bit faster than real time possibly. But yeah, there are things which are better optimized for producing video, but yeah, the idea with Reaper and using it, it's nice to use Reaper, which is great for audio, to do your music collaborations. You get more effects available to you, and you can make the video happen in the same software as your actual audio is worked on. Okay, so that's an example of how we might work on this sort of project. I'll not save changes to that at the moment. Right, so what if people are providing portrait mode? If people are providing portrait mode, here's some portrait mode videos which we might want to use. I'll open up Reaper, make a new project, and drag these in. Okay, so yeah, we've got Reaper here open. Select these video files and drag them all in, and separate tracks. Okay, so these tracks have got a sort of finger snap for synchronization. A clap would do as well. So okay, so somewhere or other there's a clap. There we go. So that one's got a little finger snap. Let's zoom in vertically as well, and hopefully we'll see that all the tracks have got finger snaps that we can synchronize with. So this is a finger snap here. Oops. Select the background so you can highlight different tracks and move them different amounts. And then this is going to be a finger snap for that track as well. Want to line them up. So you'll see it's blocky at the moment. So again, yeah, we want to switch off the snap enabled, highlight that, and now we can fine tune positions. So these are all going to be finger snapping simultaneously. If we zoom in some more, find those finger snaps, line them all up. So this is showing you in detail what I didn't do in front of you for the actual process involving synchronization. Okay, so that looks like it's about lining up the same points. There we go. So that's going to be synchronized with a bit of luck, going in detail, synchronizing these.
Rock the wind in a clear day's dawning.
Okay, so there's some video files which are portraits. Now, how are we going to make them into a grid? So same process as before, track, insert new track, and drag that to the top. So here's our new track, FX, video processor, and go to the place here again, copy the code, I did a right click there to select all that code, or select copy option. Right, paste, Command V, save, Command S, and we have a grid. Now, as you can see, the grid is currently a portrait grid because Reaper's automatically detected portraits, and it doesn't make a lot of sense at the moment. So how do we ensure that Reaper is going to produce a output which is a nice landscape output? So we go to File, Project Settings, and 1920 1080, so that's going to be our HD, and OK. Right, so now it's assuming 1, 2, 3 landscape modes are fitting into landscape mode. But yeah, here's the control relevant to all this in my code. Landscape or portrait. If we flick that to 1, it's going to do something sensible with our landscape mode. Okay, so what are we going to do with that? Yeah, we can now see that these are all playing the different video files.
Rock the wind in the clear day's dawning.
Okay, so we can do things like panning the different people to be left for that person and right for that person.
Rock the wind in the clear day's dawning.
And so on. You could click effects here, you could add reverb and such like. So if we type reverb, we can find reverberate, for instance. Go to one of the presets here. What would make a nice thing? Wide. So okay, so that's got a maybe slightly too much. There we go. Okay, that's sounding quite nice and relatively speaking, right? There we go. So we can select the output length. You can sometimes want to fade out these guys at the end. If you float on the ideal position, you can just get them resized a bit and faded out and stuff. Okay, right, so yeah, that's going to mean they disappear in the grid, so you might want to, put in a image or something if you want to preserve the position in the grid. But that type of thing that should do the job. Okay, and then we can just do a render on that. File render and portrait. I can't spell portrait. I think that's better. So entire project time selection, we change it to that, and WAP change it to MPEG, and this is should be an easy job for the computer to make that file. So portrait.m4v, you can see that the level isn't very high. You could add compressors and limiters and increase the faders, all that, until it makes some kind of sensible volume out of this. For the moment, I'll just increase the faders somewhat and see what it does for us. Render. But yeah, you can do lots of fancy mixing and adding effects and such like to get your audio just right. So that's going through just fast in real time, turning these into one output file. You can click show in Finder or whatever, it'll show you where the file is hiding on your hard disk.
Rock the wind in the clear day's dawning, blows the cloud, sails the gaudy o' the bay.
There we go, and yeah, that's fine. So yeah, putting in a video file there would just give us a little bit extra. If we put in a image, over here, it would just give us a little bit more time to let the reverb ring out, because it's sounding okay, that reverb. So we'd want to increase the length of the file but we'd really want to put some random image in to fill out the space. Here's a random image, and if we just fill out the space with that, then when we get to the end of the recordings, it might manage to, sort of hog the screen, which it doesn't. So what I'm going to do is make a new track, insert new track, drag it to the top, drag the image into that track, and now, because this is above all our video processor stuff, this should now hog the screen. There we go, and we can hear the reverb happening, and it's dying out properly by the end of the file, so that's going to be nicer. So this is the video processor track, and this one's just an image. Okay, so that's the sort of thing you might want to do to make your choir look the part and sound the part at the end. Right, so what if we've got lots more files? I'll just copy these tracks and paste them, and you'll see what happens with increasing the number of files around. You know, pretend we've got loads of people in our choir, so Y offset might be useful if you've got that. Okay, or we could paste some more, or some more, or some more, or some more, or some more, and yeah, by the time you get to very large choirs, it's going to work to put things into a grid, but it might not play back so well. It might not play back in real time. My computer is 7 years old. It's going to be pretty loud at that, so it's going to master auto mute there. So yeah, let's turn down the volume big time.
The clear days,
and a bit more.
the clear days dawning, blows the clouds, sails the gaudy o' the bay.
Okay, so that's actually playing in real time with loads and loads of little videos being fitted in. Depending on your system, you might occasionally get the audio not managing or the video not managing to keep up, and it might not play back live, but the render will still work. Even if the render happens slower than real time, it'll still let you see what's going on. But yeah, that's one of the disadvantages of Reaper, is that sometimes it can suffer from not being able to play back if you've got really, really complicated loads of videos. But yeah, as long as it's on your local hard disk, not on a external drive, you should be alright usually.
And in the clear days dawning.
It's coping with that fine. Okay, so there's what happens with that. You might ask what happens when we do something like expand lead track. So we can expand the lead track. That's going to happen and look a bit weird with portrait mode. We can have lead to front. You can see this thing is expanding to fill the whole screen. Oops, what am I doing there? So lead track number, yeah, we're changing the lead track number, and it's just going across different lead tracks. It's lead grid size. You can do some interesting things as well. Right, what we're wanting to show is when you expand one, it's going to do that at the moment. So lead grid size is probably more relevant. This is more sensible. When you've got a choir and you want to focus in on one performer who's doing a solo or whatever, and you've got the other people singing accompaniments, you might have the grid looking like this with the lead grid size increased. That's a kind of sensible way of doing things. You can change which person's in here from the lead track number. So if it's like that, it's going to be a different person, I think. And then that is going to be a different person. And that's going to be a different person, yeah? Okay, so that's the sort of idea of how this type of thing might work to give control over who's in the middle and who's not. Okay, so that's the idea with putting together a virtual video collaboration. You can change things like the whether you've got a backdrop color. You can change the color by dragging these RGB controls for controlling red, green and blue in the backdrop. You can change backdrop color / video. If you switch that to 1, it's going to take a video and put that behind everything else. Or if you drag in this, maybe, can you get that to appear? Yeah, so here if you've got your video in this area and you select your background as being backdrop color video on 1, then whatever is on your video processor track is going to then be the background. You could do something like then changing the grid border size. This grid border size changes the border. You could even make things disappear if you get the control big enough. And there we go. There's the background image. And everyone else appears. When we bring down the grid border, yeah, to make this look optimally cool, we just bring down the Y offset a little bit, or bring up the Y offset to bring that video down centrally. But I think I prefer having it generally on background color instead of having this image here. We're already using the image there for something else. We could have 2 of them if we copy and paste. But this one doesn't want to be so big because we just want to use it when we get into the end of the song. Okay, this one we don't need anymore, so I've chosen background as being a colour. Okay, so there's sort of some of the options and all the flexibility of these controls that they give you to allow you to do either a virtual band of landscapes within your landscape output, or you can make a virtual choir type video where you're using portrait mode videos and combining them. Good question might be, what happens if somebody in your choir sends you a horizontal video? So let's take a random horizontal video. Where is it? Something like this. Just drag that in. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of that and drag this in. So here's our naughty choir member who's produced a landscape, and there they are in here. So yeah, you might want to do something with that by going to FX, and then we need to go to all plugins, take off the filter, so it says verb at the moment, go to video processor, OK, and then go to basic calipers, track opacity, zoom pan, and see if we can get away with just increasing the zoom. Okay, that's zooming without actually filling the space, so we would need a different approach to actually deal with that. We have the option within the video processor. So within the video processor track, there is the option to preserve or not preserve the aspect, so you can always shrink them that way. Then the zoom isn't going to be doing anything particularly helpful, but we can control things a little bit. There we go. Okay, so at least they exist, but yeah, one for the future to add better code for enabling this landscape person to fit into the grid rather better. Now, there are different options within here, within project settings, for always resize and always resize. Okay, and yeah, the problem is that's resizing everything, and we don't want these options on when we're actually doing portrait mode videos for these obvious reasons. Okay, so output doesn't matter, it's the input. you don't want to resize the inputs to be portrait when you're working, or you don't want to resize to be landscape when you're putting in the portrait video inputs. Okay, so that's how to create your grid. When you're saving stuff in Reaper, Command S for save. So yeah, or file, save project. So when you're saving stuff, yeah, we might want to choose a sensible folder. At the moment we're doing portrait example. Let's call this portrait example for the name of this as well. Go to create subdirectory for new project if you need to. I've already made a folder, so don't need to. And move all media into project directory, but actually, yeah. Have I moved anything? Yeah, I've done that. So maybe I'll move all media into project directory, and copy rather than move source media is going to mean that I'm not losing this file from wherever it was, but I'm copying a new copy into this folder so everything's in the same place. Save. Okay, so that's just copying all the things into the same place. Okay, so that's the idea. Here's our project example folder, and you can see we've got a copy of the video copied into it. We've got some video files there, the original video files, that's the one I copied in, of the landscape, and some other files. This is the actual Reaper project, which you can reopen and so on. So now when we do a render, if you go to File, Render, Time Selection, MP4 Movie, and Render, it's going to take a bit longer. It's slower than real time this time, actually making the file. So it takes longer to make the render than it would to play back. So the video playback is obviously going to be compromised on the screen a little bit when you're playing, but the render won't be. The actual output file won't be compromised. So let's just have a wee look at that file. It's now been put into the sensible place, portraits.m4v.
Rock the wind in a clear day's dawning, blows the clouds, sails their gaudy o'er the bay.
There we go, nice reverb tail. The bassist was making noise there, but yeah, that's not a very sensible video to fit in the first place. Okay, so yeah, do make sure you get everyone to record in portrait or get everyone to record in landscape, and yeah, I've shown you how to deal with that if somebody sends a portrait when everyone else is in landscape. A little bit more challenging to deal with ones which are landscape when everyone else is portrait, but there'll be a way around it eventually. You could always resize an iMovie or one of the other video editing programs if necessary. But yeah, so this is how to use Reaper to make a virtual choir or a virtual band type video using the custom code. The code itself that you have seen being used, this code is the code linked in the YouTube description, and that will take you to this post here where you can physically copy all these lines of code which do the job of creating an automatic grid of lots of video files. Okay, thanks very much for watching.